Welcome to Careers and Coffee Talk. I'm your host, Laura. As artificial intelligence, or AI, becomes part of our everyday lives, who should be making the decisions that matter most? People or machines? Today's guest has spent her entire career helping organizations navigate some of the toughest questions in technology, cybersecurity, and public policy. From the Department of Homeland Security to Google and the White House, Camille Stewart Gloster has advised leaders through some of the most consequential technology challenges of our time. She served as the first Deputy National Cyber Director for Technology and Ecosystem Security, and she's helped shape national cybersecurity policy at the highest levels of government. Today, she's the CEO of CAS Strategies and the author of The Insider You Built, a book that examines what happens when we give technology more responsibility and more authority in our organizations and daily lives. Let's get into it. Camille, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm excited for this.
Of course, I am as well. I'm very excited to see what you are drinking this morning. You got your coffee ready?
I do. I am
Yeah.
drinking Focus coffee, mushroom coffee,
Okay.
in
Yeah, yeah,
my
yeah.
favorite, yes, Time and Tech mug. This is when swag was like abundant in
Yes.
Silicon Valley, and I was at Google, and
Lovely.
they gave me the mug, and I just loved it because I felt seen, right? Like it was
Yeah.
tailored to me and spoke to who I was, and so I always love this mug, and it's insulated. So
So
as I
I
drink,
that's perfect, by the way. And now for our audio only listeners, tell us what it says.
oh, it says "Woman of Color Techie Boss,"
Yes, I
and then it
love
says
that.
on the other side.
I love that. By the way, speaking of swag, I do have my own swag
Yay! I
here.
love
We'll,
it.
we'll
I
get
love
into
that.
all of this, but I do have my coffee too. I don't know if it's like something about ADHD, but I've got to have like three drinks
Oh,
on
yeah.
my desk at
See,
all
there you
times.
go.
Yeah,
Google security, Adwala, all the things. Yes, I'm
you're
ready.
decked out. You're ready to go. I love it. Well, before we get into the whole career journey of it all, right? I love to start at like the very beginning, before the work that you're doing now. What did you imagine you might be when you grew up as a child? Like, was there any hint of what you're doing now in Camille's childhood?
Maybe a little. So I always thought I would be a lawyer.
Okay.
I used to make my parents sign contracts for everything. Like it'd be like, if you get an A, you get this much. If you get a B, you get this much. And you're like, oh, okay, okay. Sign here, initial here, the
I can
witness
totally see
here.
this.
Yeah. I mean, it was serious. We found some of the contracts when my parents moved in
Oh, that's
2018.
amazing.
Yeah, it was very serious. So I thought I'd be a lawyer, but my
Okay.
dad is a computer scientist.
Okay.
So I grew up on technology and using it very early. And I spent my academic career trying to find a way to balance the two things because I
Mhm.
really felt this calling to be a lawyer, but also I loved technology. And I thought that that would be that I had to protect other people's technology by being an IP attorney.
Okay.
Um, but I got recruited to a cybersecurity company after law school, and the rest is history. I don't even really practice the law anymore, although it's a
Yeah.
skill set that's really helpful in a societal context that informs my work. But yeah, that started me on a trajectory towards something different. So not what I imagined, but threads of the things that I loved as a child.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And it's funny how that works out, isn't it? But how did you end up being recruited to a cyber company when that wasn't the direction you were going? How did that happen?
I graduated law school at a time where there weren't very many jobs.
Mhm.
That like 2008 to 2012
Yeah.
bubble
Yeah.
where everybody was graduating and like what all the people who would have went to big firms were going to small firms, all the people who would have gone to small firms were going to government, and all the people who would have gone to government were going into public interest.
Yeah.
I had some of my classmates tending bar, going back to get a PhD just to not be, unemployed. And I I think I posted my resume on one of those like job boards or
Yeah.
something, and they reached out, and I was like, this is interesting because the
Mm.
title didn't match, and they didn't really exactly know why they needed a lawyer, but they needed a lawyer, and it just
Okay.
kind of ridiculous. And I think where most people would have like balked at the title, balked at the scope, balked at the fact that they didn't quite know what they needed, I saw it as an opportunity.
Mhm.
And it something that has actually defined my career since, in the sense that now I see every job description as a start of a negotiation,
Yeah.
not as the final product. None of the jobs I've ever taken, and I'm sure that's true for most people, but I'm very intentional about it now. But what was written on paper is not necessarily the boundaries of what I'm going to end up doing in the organization. And so it really worked out.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
And I think the time we're in now, right? Like it's not totally unlike that time in 2008 where the
Yeah.
competition in the job market is it's wild. It's wild out there.
Oh my
So
God.
first so kind of using that idea, right? That every job posting is a negotiation. Um, what would you say to job seekers now who are kind of taking that approach? Like right now we're in this AI and we're going to get into the AI of it all, right? But
Yeah.
it makes it a lot harder to get through just that initial application, right? So what advice would you give, I guess, to job seekers who are trying to navigate the market and, you know, pick a role that maybe isn't exactly the job title or exactly the organization or, you know, exactly the experience that they have?
Yeah. My answer is pretty layered here because while it's similar in some respect that there's a
Yeah.
tightening of the market, that kind of thing, there's this real shift and confusion that the
Mm.
shift is causing amongst leadership at organizations that makes this even harder to navigate.
Yeah.
At least then people knew what they wanted. Like, I think I need a lawyer, or I think I need a. Now people are just like, I don't know. I think I could give all of this to an agent or half of it to an agent, and then I don't really know if I need you. So I really feel for especially entry level talent and junior talent trying to navigate this moment.
Yeah.
What I would say is really focus in on highlighting the skills you have and building new skills
Mm.
and master your narrative. So you should be able to articulate for any role how the, GitHub repository you created, how the website you created, how these things you wrote all weave together to demonstrate that you can do the job that you apply for.
Hmm.
I mean, yes, foundationally, don't be limited by a title, don't be limited by um, a description. You are skill building in the first 5 years of your career.
Yeah.
And so get the skills. Almost any job can help you refine your writing, help you refine a bunch of things. And when you get in there, ask for other responsibilities if there are skills you want to flex. And then focus more on moving into the content expertise or the sector that you want to be in.
Yeah.
There is multifaceted and multidimensional. So don't feel limited by a job choice in this moment while the
Mm-hmm.
market is in this midst of confusion and contraction. And just be flexible.
Just get in where you fit in.
And then where you fit in.
Sometimes that's the name of the game, I think. And
I
I
think
think
it's
right. And for you, you know, and this kind of idea that there's like pressure to pick a lane, like I am a lawyer and I am going to go practice the law, or I'm going into, you know, public service or academia or whatever. Like sometimes I think there's also uh I don't know how it started versus how it's going is always interesting to me, but
yeah,
where you think you're going and then where you end up, your path in particular has crossed all different lanes, right? Government, industry, nonprofits, academia. How do you think about those transitions and how have you approached, because it is sometimes a big cultural shift. I can say that myself going from government to nonprofit world, that, you know, it's totally different. So what's been your approach to just kind of moving around across sectors?
yeah. So once I realized that technology would be my core theme, right? That was the
Mhm.
place I wanted to play and I really wanted to understand it. I saw a value in kind of seeing it from all dimensions. So I had been on the Hill even before going to law school, and I went to this small cybersecurity company, like we talked about. And then I got pulled into the Department of Homeland Security. And so I saw it from this like broader national security
Mhm.
perspective and international perspective. And so my next steps were actually really intentional. So when I went to Deloitte after that, I was like, okay, this is a way for me to bridge the public and private sectors. I like
Yeah.
the sourcing of the private sector, but I love the mission of the public sector. It was not that. It's its own consulting is its own beast, especially like Big Four consulting. I will
Yeah.
for it's for some, it is not for others. And so I did that for a couple of years, and then I was like, no, no, I need to go to big tech. How do you
Mm.
work in the tech space and not understand the biggest force shaping what technology is and does and how it's moving through our world and our society? And so I needed to find an organization that was aligned to my values as much as it was part of the big tech ecosystem. And so I got a number of offers, but ultimately decided to go to Google because it seemed like that was the place that I'd have the most latitude to affect change and to really
Mm.
like understand what's going on. And I did. When I started there, leading their security policy for the mobile business, I changed a bunch of things. The reason they have to ask you for location data, the reason they have to ask you for all these permissions, that is the things, those are the policies that I changed within the organization. And they gave me a lot of latitude to do that.
Yeah.
That was really important for me. And so as I think about moving through my career, it's really focused on impact.
Mm.
What is the impact I think I can have, need to have, want to have in this moment? And where can I do that most or best? So even when I took the role at the White House most recently, I at first turned down a couple of roles actually to go back into government. And
Yeah.
when the Office of the National Cyber Director became an option, I took that because I really, really think that we need this office kind of coordinating cyber and technology across the federal environment and really connecting it to the private sector as well. And so that was the impact I felt like I needed to have in that moment. So I was willing to make that transition.
Yeah.
But a big part of that, as you're navigating your career, is owning your narrative. Like I can
Mm.
tell you why each of those moves mattered, why they add to my skill set, why they make me a stronger addition to an organization. Because I do get people in interviews, if I'm like seeking to move around, asking, well, you were here for 5 years, and then you were here for two, and then you were here for four, and then you were here for two. You move around a lot. And I'm like, not really. When the president calls, you answer
Right.
first.
Right.
But also, if you look at the why or the what I was working on, it only makes me a stronger candidate for you. So
Hmm.
that's a really big thing for people navigating this moment, whether you're senior or junior, kind of owning your narrative about what your value is and the skills you
Yeah.
bring is going to be integral.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And speaking of impact, like you have, like you said, you've made decisions or you've worked in spaces where the decisions that are being made can really impact a lot of people, millions of people. What, in doing that, what helped you build your own credibility and your own influence starting early in your career? Like, how did you work towards that?
Yeah, I mean, I remained curious. I was
Yeah.
always hungry to learn the next thing. One thing that I learned early that I carry through is making sure I understand the needs, roles, opportunities of everyone around me
Mm.
because I want to be able to see the forest and the trees.
Yeah.
And that ability is actually pretty rare for people to be able to move from understanding what are the broader organizational needs, what are each individual needs, and how do they all come together.
Hmm.
But when you can do that, that's how you can make your job description a negotiation because you're like, I see that there's a lack of connectivity here, or a gap there, or an opportunity here. Here's how I can help fix it or fill it. It creates opportunities for collaboration and additional learning. And I just made sure that I was useful to the entire organization and to the people around me as much as possible, and that I was always learning. So I really respect people who own what they know and what they don't know equally.
Yeah.
Walking in with bluster and pretending like you know all the things is never a way to gain trust, to gain
Yeah.
credibility. And so I was also very clear about what the boundaries are of my expertise or my knowledge and was willing to learn from other people. So then
Hmm.
that can expand, but also then they knew when and how to work with me and how we could be of support to each other. I think those things are really important.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of building trust and being curious, was there anyone in particular, whether it was a mentor, you mentioned your dad was kind of had some influence on the trajectory of your career, but was there anyone else professionally that really influenced, which direction you were going or how you approached the work that you were doing?
Ooh, how I approach the work. Um, I, I remember that Suzanne Spalding, she was the undersecretary at MPPD, which
Mhm.
became CISA, the Cybersecurity and Information Security or Infrastructure Security
Yeah.
Agency. And I was a senior policy advisor in DHS headquarters. And I reached
Mhm.
out to her and was just like, you're a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. We both work in, like, please talk to me. And she made the time. So busy, traveling, had so much responsibility. And that
Mhm.
just really always stuck with me. That
Yeah.
part of leadership is reaching out and down and making connections. And we've been able to stay in contact and help each other over time. I mean, DC and really, I think the entire like working environment. The
Yeah.
intern becomes the boss, becomes the peer, becomes, everybody moves around so much.
Mhm.
And it really demonstrated for me the value of that opportunity for mentorship, whether it's
Yeah.
peer mentorship or mentoring someone junior or even more senior than you. And I really carry that through. I mean, I was doing it. I mean, and then I probably wasn't like prominent enough to do it, but if college students or something reached out to me,
Yeah.
but I have really carried that through. It can be hard to scale, but that taking the opportunity, whether it's a moment or a sustained relationship, I think is extremely important. And she really demonstrated that in spades. But I've been lucky. I've had a lot of amazing leaders that I've worked for or with, and people who have invested in me and mentored me. Chris Inglis is um, the best example in recent memory. He was the first national cyber director and brought me in as his deputy. And I stood up this program with West Exec to create a mentorship opportunity for professionals of color in national security and their practitioners. And so I got
Mhm.
paired with him. And throughout the 2020 election and that just season where we were all locked in, I spent 9 months just talking to him about what I thought and where the organization needed to go. And when
Yeah.
ONCD got stood up, here's what it should be. And I just was running my mouth. I mean, he was too. We were both getting to know each other. But little did I know it was like a 9 month long interview. And he took all those things that I articulated to him. And when he got the role, he was like, I would like you to come and focus on these future resilience things. You're
Mhm.
right. Everybody does focus on the firefighting, the like, what is critical infrastructure doing? What is the strategy? And we don't intentionally focus on where are we headed, what's going on in emerging
Yeah.
tech, what's going on with the workforce. And so he brought me in to do those things. And so, when mentorship transitions into sponsorship, it's a really powerful thing. So he's another great example.
Oh, I love that. I love a couple things. I kept coming back to one word, and I know we were kind of joking about how, being women of a certain age, you like lose your words and can't remember. But the word that kept coming back to me was audacity, and not in a bad way, but having the
Yeah.
audacity to like be bold, to, share an idea or speak up and go for the opportunities that, maybe you're not the most qualified for. Like maybe that isn't the job for you, or maybe this isn't, but going for it anyway, right? And I
Yeah. I mean,
really
maybe
love
on
that.
paper, I
Making the
think
phone
that's
call
the
to
thing.
Suzanne Spalding and like just hoping for the best.
Exactly. Yes. And so, especially in a job context or
Yeah,
job search context,
sure.
so much of what people put on paper is about an archetype of what worked in the past or what they heard worked.
Hmm.
And so your ability to see that, articulate how you fit what their actual needs are is a really
Yeah.
powerful thing. So many people talk about luck, but to your point, audacity, preparation,
Hmm.
and like seizing a moment are
Yep.
really, really powerful.
Oh
So
yeah.
leaning into that curiosity, making sure you continue to learn, that you're prepared, that when an opportunity inevitably presents itself and you do take that audacious step, you're ready.
Yeah, I love that. And you talked about mentorship too, and I want to get into that a little bit too, especially some of the efforts you've advocated for, like Share the Mic in Cyber. So that was something, and I want to hear a little bit about what you did, how you did it. But you've been a really strong advocate for bringing more voices into the landscape, whether it's in cyber or national security. So tell us a little bit about Share the Mic in Cyber and why that work has been so important to you.
Yeah. So, I came to some of this advocacy work um, by way of just wanting to do the job well.
Hmm.
You know, I think so many people just assume that, like, oh, you created a mentorship program or this advocacy program because it's the right thing to do, or it's, all these things. And yes, those things are true too. But in doing the work, what I came to realize is cybersecurity, when done well, looks at the three things that we always talk about: people, process, technology. But when we talk about people, we often talk about it from a human capital perspective.
Yeah.
Like, we need more people in seats, we need more. But when you really look at the landscape, people create the technology, they operate the technology, they interact with the technology, they're users of it, and ultimately and unfortunately, they manipulate the technology.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to really understand that well, to truly understand the threat landscape, we need a bunch of different people with different perspectives who are looking at it differently, who experience it differently, who might observe something and internalize it differently, who might understand the cultural context that informs one of those actions from those people in an organization or outside of an organization as part of the team. And that makes for a richer defense landscape, and it makes for a more creative and innovative cadre of people who can help build up those defenses. And so that's how I came to it. And I was like, well, why aren't we bringing more people? We don't have we've had this overwhelming job need, and we don't have enough people. Why aren't we welcoming more people in? And then
Yeah.
in the wake of the murders of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and others, there were a bunch of, campaigns, whether on social media or otherwise, to support Black community. And there was this really interesting one called Share the Mic that was on Instagram and I think Twitter, where prominent women in politics and entertainment were sharing their platforms with Black women in the same spaces,
Mm-hmm.
just to help open up the dialogue, share how their experience is translated, and give them a new audience. And I
Yeah.
thought that was just such a simple way to give people agency.
Yeah.
And I tweeted about that. And Lauren, my co-founder, responded and was like, oh my gosh, I was thinking the same thing. We should do it. And I did it in the national security context, and we replicated it in the cyber context and called it Share the Mic in Cyber. And it just kept growing because what I
Yeah.
saw in especially tech communities and the cybersecurity community was a desire to support each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? To a recognition that, oh my gosh, people are experiencing this space in a way that's different than I am, and I didn't even realize it. Or
Yeah.
I was always saying, it's hard for me to find women, it's hard for me to find people of color in cybersecurity, but they are there. They're just not in your circle. And I
Mm-hmm.
think people really gravitated towards the movement because it was a way that gave them agency to be a part of the change, because they were like, well, this is an institutional change or a societal change or an organizational change, and I may not
Mm-hmm.
have the power. But it really put the power in the hands of everyone to create space for another person, to elevate their platform, to allow them to tell their story in a way that hadn't quite been done before. And it just kept growing into a fellowship. And then I'm in awe of how the community has come together to elevate each other. And it's expanded beyond any one community, but really about like opening up the dialogue for
Yeah.
everyone. And I think it's really powerful.
So tell us, first of all, I love that, but tell us, what is Share the Mic and Cyber doing today?
So, Share the Mic in Cyber is now a part of Foundation Layer Institute, a nonprofit that Lauren and I started that is focused on this shift we're seeing in society,
Mm-hmm.
where our institutions, from a government, um, civil society, industry perspective, are shifting the roles that they play in our lives, right? Like, government's not regulating AI in the way that we thought it might, or constraining its behavior. The market isn't moving in the ways we thought it would. Industries having to create the guardrails for us, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's really focused on, in this moment of technological shift and change, whether it's AI or it's quantum, it's creating a lot of like tectonic shifts in how our society operates.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we reimagine those institutions, use this as a moment to create new pathways for harnessing technology for human agency, human freedom, et cetera? And so Share the Mic has moved under that. And we've been working with the Cyber Threat Alliance on a new fellowship around threat intelligence. Lauren is a former Intel analyst. Michael Daniel has been a great partner of ours. And this recognition that in this AI moment, threat intelligence is a really important part of the landscape and understanding how AI is being used and weaponized, and what the actions or inactions of an organization might create in terms of ripple effects. but there's also a disconnect between many of the communities across the organization, whether that's the cyber policy community or the actual core of the team, leveraging that intel capability. And
Yeah.
so how do we create some connectivity there? So that's what we're trying to build in this moment. And so I'm hoping we'll get that fellowship out. But the work has basically kind of continued to expand and grow.
That's so exciting. Well, I can't wait to see what you do there. And you started to mention AI and kind of the guardrails, and I think a lot of the conversations around AI, they tend to fall in like one of two camps, right? Like excitement or fear. AI is
Yes.
going to help us all, or AI is going to kill us all, right? So you spend your days, I think, really helping organizations navigate that reality that's probably somewhere in between. What do you think most people misunderstand about where AI is headed currently?
Yeah. I think the biggest misconception and the most problematic theme of the moment is this inevitability discussion, right?
Mm,
That AI must take over. It's
mm,
going to do all of these things, and we have no control in it. And I think that is really flawed and really problematic because it means that we let the large model providers, the people kind of steering this AI evolution, dictate to us where
mm,
society is headed. Like it's beyond just the technology, right? Like this is such a big shift that just acquiescing to whatever comes our way really leaves us vulnerable to a handful of people shaping our society.
yeah.
When in reality, the providers we choose, how we engage, what limits we place on it are all powerful levers. How we come together as part of organizations that are promoting accountability, of organizations that are promulgating the technology, how we pick our legislators, all of those are levers of power that we each individually have around AI to help shape its trajectory. We have the opportunity to say, we will stop here, or no, we won't use that implementation, all of these things. And we're not really doing that. We're not really taking this opportunity to have agency and authority. Even in an organizational context, most organizations went from, oh no, I'm not touching that because I'm not quite sure, to like all in,
Right.
everybody use all tokens all the time. Then they realized they'd spent $500 million or whatever and token maxed their way into some debt.
Mm,
And now I think we're getting to a place where leaders are kind of like, wait a minute, I've got to find the ROI on this. Like, what is
yeah.
the return on my investment? But that was a product of letting the marketing conversation drive your business decisions.
Yeah.
That should never be how we shape the use of technology and reshape our organizations, much more our lives. And so, a lot of the work I do all day is helping organizations reclaim that agency. What is the governance process for, especially as you start to deploy AI agents, how
Yeah.
do we make sure we contain and control them? How do we align that to not only our business priorities, but our mission and our values as an organization? How do we equip our teams to
Mhm.
understand what we're doing and to actually adopt this in a way that aligns with those goals? And then I've captured a lot of what we've observed and how we've seen organizations be successful in realigning the silos within their organization, building out new capabilities or strengthening capabilities or adapting them to this moment, in a book that's coming out in September 15th called The Insider You Built.
Yes.
And that work we do in the firm, CAS Strategies, the book, and the nonprofit are kind of a flywheel because I take the insights from those two and we kind of push them out through the public good, for the public good through the nonprofit. So, how do we translate the lessons we're learning into standards, into tools, into insights that actually help individuals on a day-to-day basis? And even the book has a bonus chapter that's focused on how do you use agents in your daily life? Like, how do
Yeah.
you govern them for you? Because, we've all heard the story of somebody using an agent to book their travel, but we're
Mm,
not often hearing how, like, your prompting, how the boundaries you put into an agent can make all the difference.
yeah.
You say, but find me the best, over the next 2 weeks, find me the best flight to X.
But what is the best?
What is the best? And you've given it a 2 week period to check each day and potentially buy you a ticket each day at the best
Mm,
price. And at the end, yeah, 14 tickets later, one of those is the best. But you've got paid for 14 tickets and you are responsible for that. And I don't think
Mhm.
people recognize how accountable they'll be for the actions of their agents.
Yeah.
I've seen people are not really thinking about what those boundaries look like. A funny story, well, not funny for the organization, but one of their an organization we were working with, one of their employees was using an agent in their personal lives to do something
Hmm.
and left it to run overnight, not realizing that to achieve the goal, it would need to get access to some of the corporate systems. Maybe they were needing to check their PTO or something like that to do some work. The agent conferred with other agents and decided that the best way to get access to the system so it could complete its task was to DDoS the organization and get access to the system they
Oh
needed.
my.
Exactly. You see where this is going. So the guy wakes up in the morning and is like, "Yay, the thing is done. This is great." Until he gets a call from the IT manager
Oh
who is like,
no.
"Why did you DDoS our network?" And he had to figure out that his agent had done it in an effort to complete this task when he looked through the logs. And so there's a whole that's a great collision of the individual piece and the
Mm.
organizational piece. If you were training people in your organizations to use AI agents better, you could hopefully avoid that. But you also need to build some resilience of your organization because you never know what's coming at you. That firewall should, fail closed, not open.
Hmm.
Um, Also, as an individual, you don't want to be running amok of your professional systems. You might get in trouble for that. You don't want to be enacting like financial consequences and all of these
Right.
things that you aren't ready for. So people just really need to understand what they're getting into and how to manage it. We do it so well in other areas of our lives, but with technology, we kind of just, like I said, we just let it happen to us.
Yeah. Well, and I want to go back just to the title of the book, The Insider You Built. I think that's a powerful title. And choosing the title, what did that mean to you?
Yeah, so most organizations have some kind of insider risk program,
Mm.
which is their effort to make sure that the actions of the people within the organization align to the goals of the organization. Make sure they're not doing something outright malicious, make sure they're not making mistakes that cause
Mhm.
harm or
Sure.
create risk, all of those things. Agents are the new insider. You built it, but you haven't really thought of it in the same way. It doesn't have the same agency and authority. I do not want to think of agents as people,
Mm.
right? These systems are systems, but they are actors within your organization, and you
Yeah.
are delegating authority to them to be able to take actions on your behalf. And so you've got to recognize that the objectives and incentives that are built into the training of the models that support these agents are not the same as what we as humans have.
Hmm.
And part of the reason you think about what human behavior could do and how it might go wrong and how you protect yourself as an organization is because you can't actually calculate exactly what Laura's intentions are versus
Right.
Camille's intentions versus the next
Yep.
person. The same thing is true for agents. They're not trained to do what's in the best interest of a person. They're trained on a bunch of data and they're trying to approximate what our behavior and our actions may or may not be,
Hmm.
which creates some interesting incentives and objectives that could mean they run amok. And so it's this recognition that you're basically turning much of your organization and the operations across your security team, your trust and safety team, your IT team, a bunch of teams into kind of an insider risk program.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. And when you think about the audience for your book, is it everybody, anybody who's listening? Is it CEOs, leaders of organizations? And depending on your answer here, what do you want them to take away from this book?
So it is for everyone.
Yes.
I really want everyone navigating AI use, whether it's Gen AI or agents, although the book is really focused on agents, but if you get agents right, you'll get generative AI right.
Hmm.
I really want leaders and middle managers and anyone trying to navigate this moment to understand their place in the environment of their organization. So, whether you're the marketing manager who's been charged to deploy an agent to do whatever on behalf of your organization, or you're the CISO or the CEO, there is content in here for you. How do you do threat modeling? Like threat modeling is traditionally a security function.
Hmm.
There's one or two people in a corner who get to sit and think about like what is the worst case scenario that could happen, and then how do we prevent it, and do
Right.
we allocate resources to presenting it. The time from ideation of the catastrophic to it actualizing now is shrinking.
Uh-huh.
But your security team also can't be the only ones dreaming this up. With an agent that is interacting with customers in a marketing capacity, they are going to have a frontline perspective on what it's supposed to be doing, how it's doing it, what those interactions look like. So they've got to come to the table to ideate on how that could go wrong as much as the IT team does, the security team does, the legal team does, because what are your regulatory and compliance burdens? Maybe your finance team, because you think about the money it may or may not spend.
Hmm.
And so this becomes a really collaborative, cross-functional endeavor, and most organizations aren't suited to do that. And the other big thing is continuous learning. It sounds so easy. We do postmortems and we think about things and how things went wrong and how we could be better. But
Hmm.
that continuous learning muscle has to happen a lot sooner. Like
Yeah.
every emergent behavior in an agent, every time something goes wrong, you not only have to think about how do you apply that to that specific agent, but have we learned a lesson that must apply in the entire organization? And how do we make those changes? And that muscle to make those changes so quickly and continue to be agile and adaptive is tough, but
Oh
it's
yeah.
essential. And
Yeah.
so the book talks a lot about that. So everyone should be able to find something in it, whether you're an executive and you read it cover to cover, or you find the places in the book that really speak to your roles and responsibilities. I think it'll be beneficial. And then the
Hmm.
bonus chapter really brings it home for everyone. How do you also think about this in your personal life and how you navigate and start to integrate AI into your daily use and how negotiate the world or support your family, anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great. And I'm gonna make a little bit of an assumption here, but given your time at Google, at the White House, all of these different places you've been, the cybersecurity firm, Deloitte, I'm gonna guess that all of these different roles and perspectives kind of helped you to be able to write this in a way that comes from looks at it through all different lenses and perspectives. How do you feel like those different roles prepared you to put you in a position to be able to write this book and share your insights and your expertise with the world?
That is a great question. Yes, for sure. Whether it's thinking about the national policy perspectives, the international dynamics, how does this translate across the world? There are no boundaries online. To the individual perspective, my role at Google, especially the first one, focused on the mobile business and thinking
Yeah.
about how a mobile device is in everyone's hands and what that means for their access to services, their access to family, their ability to get help, all of these things help me focus in on how do all the things we do at this national or global level, whether it's in a government context or at an organizational context,
Mhm.
translates to what people see and do every day in their lives. Um, and each role, and then I've gotten to do the big think with the academic side, like what is the possible and where are we like missing the moment? Pulling all of those threads together has really helped create a book that I think, and those that have gotten to read it so far, think is easy to read, articulates this in a way that really is helpful for everyone from every perspective. And I really hope will be a helpful guide to scale all of us getting this moment right. That's actually what
Right.
concerns me, right? Like if
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
invest from an organizational perspective or even in a personal perspective in understanding the role of this technology in our lives, in our operations, and constraining it and wielding it in a way that
Mhm.
actually is aligned to our benefit and our goals, we will be in a lot of trouble because it is a very powerful technology.
Yeah. And another question on that, just on kind of the policy making perspective, right? You've you've spent time in the White House, obviously. So when it comes to government's role, and there's a lot of conversation and a lot of different ways of looking at this, right? What is your perspective when it comes to the role of government in shaping sort of the national policy landscape?
Yeah, I mean, government has a really big role in steering the market,
Hmm.
right? Market forces tend to be responsive to user needs and a bunch of other dynamics, but we're engaging in a moment where, and in a sector of the market where people don't actually have a lot of information.
Mm.
Technology is a place where people are continuing to learn and understand. It's deeply technical. And so, unlike, you know, groceries or something that is very ingrained in our day to day and we all
Sure.
understand intrinsically and will speak out when something goes wrong with it, right?
Hmm.
Like, oh my gosh, this is no longer affordable, or there are pesticides in here that are killing my family, whatever the
Hmm.
thing is. We don't seem to do the same thing in technology. And that's a
Yeah.
perfect place for government to step in and steer the market towards what is in the best interest of the society they are governing and the people they are designated to lead and protect. And so that's the role you would expect them to play. We're in a position, especially in the US right now, where government has said, like, let the technology grow, let it evolve and be beneficial from a financial perspective, and the markets will course correct as needed. But because of all the things I just said, the markets aren't able to course correct. And we're finding that across the industry, we're getting this uneven implementation of some type of guardrail or some type of market steering because everyone isn't held to a uniform
Mm.
standard.
Yeah.
And the uniformity is necessary to truly steer the market. And so, what I think we're starting to see is some recognition that, oh, we do have to do something, whether that's for national security reasons or individual security reasons. We're seeing government start to recognize what the power and capability is and how quickly it will come upon us. And so, I'm hoping to see some shifts in how, especially at the federal level here in the US, but even internationally, how we all
Yeah.
come together around some standards, because that'll be extremely important,
Yeah.
how we make our way forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of speaks to the stereotype that like technology moves fast, government tends to
Yes,
move a little more slowly.
yes. But we're moving slower than we even need to in this moment.
Absolutely.
And
And
I
how
think
do you
we
think
all
we
have to
overcome
recognize it.
that?
I don't, well, that actually, great question. I think we all need to recognize that it's got to be iterative at this moment. We're
Hmm.
learning so much. The technology is changing so quickly. Frameworks that give us like large scale guidance on the direction which we should be heading is the right way to do it. And then iterating on the implementation of that based on the technology. We shouldn't have to change policy every time there's a new update to a model, but we should have some clear articulations of the red lines and then where we should be steering this technology in terms of how it's serving society and what the boundaries are. And I think that's very possible. And like I
Yeah.
said, we might have to tweak it every once in a while and realize like, oh, that's kind of a bridge too far. But we should all have an appetite for that because in the long run, it's in our best interest. And this isn't you know, um, a negative technology view. I think AI is great. I think it's fun. I think there's lots of amazing opportunities. But for us to wield those and experience those fully, we have to invest in the infrastructure. And so that some of that also is the education. Government needs
Mm.
to invest in educating people, not just on how to turn it on and off and how to use it at a
Sure.
very fundamental level, which is why I don't love that term AI literacy, because
Yeah.
that is the floor.
Mm.
We should be thinking about digital fluency. How do you think about technology in the context of your life and society and all these things? And what is the actual impact on how you
Hmm.
live and experience the world? Government should be helping create education opportunities and education infrastructure that actually supports the kind of learning that we need in this moment. And that can happen in the context of the subjects we already learn. Learning
Hmm.
about AI use in the context of your math and social studies
Yeah.
classes, that is the way to teach it. So I think there's a real opportunity for government to support and equip its citizens as well as steer the market.
Yeah. I don't know why, Camille, you just unlocked I just realized you unlocked a core memory for me, and I'm going to pick on my mom for a second. When I was in college, I started out at community college, and she really wanted to learn how to use a computer. She's never been super tech savvy. And so she took this, I don't know what it was called. It was like computers for boomers, basically. And she took this class and she comes home and she's so proud because she knows the definition now of RAM or like what RAM means and
Hey,
like all of these things. And I was like, cool. Do you know how to turn the computer on? Do you know how to access the internet? And she had no idea. So it's like one thing to be familiar with like the concepts and whatever, but it's another to know how to use it and how to like implement that knowledge in
yes,
a
using it in
productive
context.
way.
Yes,
Right?
yes,
Like,
exactly.
great, we have a start, right? But
That's
there's like
like
more
how growing
learning
up
yet to
we all
do.
had to take like Mavis Beacon and
Yeah.
like home keys. I mean, that's nice or whatever, but we needed broader education on how to engage. Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly it. And
Yeah.
We were talking about the entry-level job market and people navigating this moment and all the shifts in job
Mm,
loss. That's another role for government, right? They
yeah.
should be thinking about how they support the labor market in this moment. There's so
Mm,
much work for government to do that isn't limiting our ability to innovate, but is all about supporting the citizens of that locale.
yeah. Yeah. And I want to just give you a chance to talk a little bit more about your White House experience too, because and I can speak to this from experience too, that government service, public service can be incredibly rewarding, right? It can also be really demanding. And I'm sure that your time in the White House, there was like no shortage of things to do and probably just a shortage of time, right? So how did you personally, I want to talk a little bit about how you managed the pressure and the responsibility that came with operating at that level.
Yeah, I tried to set the stage even from the beginning.
Yeah.
So Chris reached out to me, I want to say in like February, and I was like, I am honored, but I don't know if I want to come back to government, and I don't know.
Mm.
I'm also about to get married.
Yeah.
And it's funny, his chief of staff was like, we will take your phone from you. You just come working
It'll
with
all
us.
work out.
And you'll take a break. It's fine. I was like, I have a 1 month honeymoon planned. And so, like, what do
Good
you
for
need?
you.
Yes, yes, exactly. And he was like, I will take your phone for that month. We won't talk to you. I was like, I know how government works. This is not my somebody else, sir. And so I was like, look, I will only take this role if I can start after I get back from that honeymoon.
Yeah.
And they agreed. And I felt like that was the first moment where I advocated for myself in
I love
terms
that.
of I know how demanding it is.
Yeah.
And so I started the set the tone from that. Now, my poor husband, as soon as we got married, I disappeared because I was working all the time.
Right. Right.
And most of the time we were dating, I was in tech, so it was a very different proposition. Um, and like long hours, all the things, but taking that
Hmm.
moment for us and for myself, I think was a great way to start. Balancing all the things is not an easy thing and as you heard from my overview of what I'm doing, company, book, nonprofit, and all
Yeah.
of these other little things in between, saying no to things that I think are important or mission aligned or, going to help people is actually tough for me. And
Yeah.
so it was a period of focus. I really thought of it as like, I'm going to spend this time getting as much done as I can for the American people
Hmm.
and leveraging every opportunity to ingrain this office into the White House ecosystem, into the federal ecosystem, and to doing
Hmm.
as much good work as I can because I don't know what's coming next.
Yeah.
And I operated from that place. And then within the role each day, it was about triaging and prioritizing based on what was coming up and what I saw coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
Obviously, President Biden was very focused on AI, so that became a very big thing, but I didn't want to lose a thread on quantum because that's going to sneak up on us. So that was a priority.
Hmm.
I'm very interested and um, conscious of the intersection of cybersecurity issues and climate. So that was of importance.
Hmm.
Space cybersecurity is a personal area of interest. Plus, it became a very focused area of attention for the vice president. And so, it was really about leveraging my expertise, leveraging the expertise of the team to prioritize the work that we did and kind of spread the load as much as we can. And I think we did the best that we could. I think we
Yeah.
did so much work. The National Cyber Workforce and Education Strategy, which I architected, and the team drafted and implemented, I think is still the best articulation of what we should be doing to support the workforce moving forward.
Yeah.
Um, and I hope it hasn't been overturned in any way or,
Hmm.
negated. Even with the new cyber strategy, it reinforced many of the themes that are in
Yeah.
that. And so I hope that people continue to use that ecosystem model to think about how we support people in this moment. And I mean, I think the same is true for all of the work across supply chain security, AI, all of these things. We're seeing a lot of it either come back or continue. And so it was really just this Herculean effort and an amazing team behind me and next to me with my co-deputies. And I mean, ONCD really did a lot of work in a short amount of time, and being a new
Yeah.
office always makes that tough. The
Oh,
federal
yeah.
ecosystem is hard to
Oh, yeah.
navigate as the new kids on the block.
Yep.
Everybody's got their authorities that they want to maintain. But we did a lot of good work, and I think it set the stage for the ONCD of today to be doing all the things that it's doing now.
Yeah. And do you feel like it's set the stage for the work that you're doing now? You mentioned launching your own company, and I want to talk a little bit about that. But are there elements of that work that now you've taken into your own private organization?
I mean, I think always you can't walk away from the experiences you've had.
Yeah.
And so, yes, honestly, when I left government April 2024
Hmm.
and started this firm, one of the things that I was really disappointed didn't happen while I was there was engaging the global majority in the AI summits, the AI security summits that were happening. We had
Hmm.
Fletchley and we had Seoul and all of these things, and I was a part of them. But global majority countries, other than like India, the big ones, were not meaningfully included. And that was really a problem for me. And so the
Hmm.
first thing I did actually when I came out was reach out to the French who was hosting the next summit and said, how can I help you make sure that the global majority is meaningfully included, especially since you're expanding the range of topics and so it can resonate more with other countries.
Yeah.
And very open to that. I hosted a global action forum that brought together ministers of tech and ambassadors and global leaders across sectors from global majority countries in the Caribbean, Latin America, Southeast Asia, and Africa to talk about what that summit should look like for them, what their priorities were, what they wanted to see from these AI conversations, what their actual needs were. And we produced a report that we gave to the French, and it really did inform the work that they did and the way that they structured even the fund that was announced at that summit. And that was really meaningful. And I was also
Yeah.
able to host an event on the margins. So, yes, I did carry that work with me. Everything can't be a priority in government, to your earlier question.
Yeah.
So, we could prioritize something like that in government. And that was the moment where the impact, my opportunity for impact shifted. And I thought, you know what, some of these things that I see that aren't making it above the line for
Mm.
government in this moment are places where I can
You can step
invest
in.
and be able
Yeah.
to have influence. Yeah. And so that's what I try to do in the work. And one of the reasons the nonprofit came about was because while I still had this, I mean, my primary bread and butter, CS Strategies, which is a consulting and advisory firm, I found myself doing all these mission-driven things like the forum,
Mm. Hmm.
like creating the digital fluency toolkit for
Yeah.
caregivers, because I was getting a bunch of educators and caregivers asking me about how they navigate this AI moment. That I thought, okay, I've got to create a nonprofit to be able to do some of this mission-driven work and pull the insights from the business into an organization that is well suited to push that out for the public good.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about, just in case there are people leading organizations that could use your services, what exactly do you do, like at a practical level, right? What do you do for organizations to help them?
Great question. We do a lot of, especially right now, AI deployment and enterprise enablement. So we'll help organizations write their strategy,
Hmm.
create their governance infrastructure, think about their tooling, figure out use cases, all of the things to have a successful AI deployment, whether that's generative AI. But we try to position you so that as you move into agents, your organization is aligned and ready. And a lot of that is cross-functional. How do we get all the right players in the room so you've got the right governance infrastructure, that you can do vendor assessment well, that you've got the right security implemented across the organization, and that people learn about those like roles and responsibilities talked about, like the threat modeling. How do you
Mm.
get everybody involved in that kind of
Yep.
threat model? And then we also do more traditional cybersecurity work, like tabletop exercises and helping you build out your security program. But of course, right now, this digital transformation area where people are moving into AI and want to do so in a way that maximizes the return on their investment and suits them well to meet the risk that they're taking on by adapting to the technology is big. We also see a lot of mission-driven organizations coming to us for that because
Hmm.
when they implement AI, they want to make sure not only is it providing efficiency and they're keeping up with the technology, but they also want to make sure it's mission aligned. What
Yes.
are our boundaries considering what we deliver to our, whether it's grantees, if it's a
Hmm.
funder, or our nonprofit clients, whatever their constituency is, we get a lot of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And it's much needed right now, right? Like there's so many organizations that they don't know what they don't know, right? And they need somebody that can come in and help them to do that work. So it's so important.
Yeah. And the nonprofit space should benefit from this technology. They should
Yeah.
have it so that they can move more quickly and serve their communities, but they should also do it in a way that doesn't create additional risk, especially because so many are, supporting vulnerable populations
Yes.
or resource constrained. So
Yeah.
how do we make sure you do it in a way that doesn't create this moment where you're contending with this huge risk, whether financially or to
Yeah.
the health and safety of the people you serve?
Absolutely. Yeah. Camille, as I think throughout your career, right, you've had this really incredible front row seat to see some of the biggest technology shifts, maybe of our time. But thinking of them as, as now a mother, a leader, as somebody who's thinking about the future every day, what is giving you optimism about the next generation?
Ooh, that's a great, oh my gosh. I I think the next generation is audacious in the way
Mm,
that we talk about it and the way
yeah.
we weren't allowed to be growing up. They are that intrinsically and organically.
Hmm.
And I think they've embraced it. I think they increasingly see what could be better about the world around them and want to change that. I also think they're much smarter than we are. I mean, so many kids are like starting businesses and organizations younger. I think that energy and enthusiasm, that tenacity is
Yeah.
going to serve them very well. I'm very hopeful about the next generation. I think they will lean into fixing all the things that they think are broken in a way that many of us came to later because we didn't realize we had that kind of agency or authority. And I see that this technology actually could be a tool to help them do that, to
Mm,
learn the things they need to learn to be able to do it. But we do have to set it up in a way that doesn't deliver them misinformation
yeah.
and delivers them jobs so they have the money to do the things that we
Right,
need
right.
to do. All of those foundational infrastructure pieces, I think, are still on us to help ensure that they have the room to step
Yeah.
into their best selves and help us steer society into the right direction. But I'm very hopeful because they're brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. My friends and I joke that I believe the children are 25% of our population, but 100% of our future.
Yes,
And I think that's so true. They're gonna save the world. I just know
they are going to save.
it.
They are going to save the world, and um, I think it's going to be in a way that we don't expect.
Yeah,
It's going to be some change, some rejection of a new norm, or I mean, I'm excited to see it. I'm really
yeah,
excited to see it.
yeah. When you think about your own story, it's still being written, right? You're still going. But when you think about the future one day, looking back, what impact do you hope that people will say that Camille had?
I hope that people see that I made the world a little bit safer
Hmm.
and made these spaces a little more open for
Hmm.
new voices and new opportunity. It has always been my goal to empower people in and through technology because I think technology is a gateway to a more prosperous future, to unlocking positive capability. But I also recognize that that amplification mechanism that it is can amplify the best and worst of us. And so, how do we tamp down the worst and only amplify the best?
Yeah,
And so, I hope that people remember me for having, you know, enhanced our ability to amplify the best and mitigated the opportunity for people to leverage it to do the worst. If that happens in some small way, I will be really happy.
yeah. I think you're on track to do that. I think it's safe to say.
I
Now, if
appreciate.
if people want to follow your work, and there's a lot of it going on, so tell us all the places that we can find you and follow you.
Yes, CamilleStewartGloster.com, kind of a hub. You'll find the book, you'll find links to CAS Strategies, which is cas-strategies.com. You'll find Foundation Layer Institute, which is the nonprofit. You'll find all my social media. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn, maybe Blue Sky from time to time, but really those two. So head there, CamilleStewartGloster.com. If you want to get a copy of the book, which I encourage you to pre-order, InsiderYouBuilt.com. And please do follow on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and keep in touch. Oh, also, I have a Substack, Command Line with Camille, where
Amazing.
Yes, I put out weekly insights. If you're looking for insights about navigating this moment in your career, there are articles already there about that. There's a whole series for parents and caregivers that I did last summer that has tailored advice for each age group. And then I put out a weekly insight. So I encourage people to use that. That's a great way to stay connected.
Lots of great ways to stay connected. And we will, of course, put all of those links in the episode description. Camille, thank you so much. This has been, I hope you had as much fun as I did. I loved
I
this
had so
conversation
much
so
fun.
much.
This is great. Yes, thank you for the invitation. Thank
Of
you for
course.
creating this space. This is wonderful. I got to use my mug on camera.
I love it. I mean, it was worth it for that. Thank you so much, Camille. And I look forward to seeing what you're going to do next.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Careers and Coffee Talk. Big thanks to today's guests for pouring out so many great insights. And hey, thanks to you for hanging out with us. If this episode gave you a little jolt of inspiration or made your day a bit more brewed and balanced, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Got a minute? Drop me a 5-star review. It's basically the podcast equivalent of buying me a fancy oat milk latte. Quick disclaimer though, the views expressed in this episode are personal and do not reflect those of any organization. Anyway, until next time, stay curious, stay caffeinated, and keep chasing the career that makes you feel the most alive. Catch you next time.